On today's show, we talk about the NFL Conference Championship round and what we expect to happen. We then go in depth on Texas men's basketball's 2-game winning streak and what is next on the schedule. Then we'll predict the biggest games of the week. All this and more on the 1-0 Sports Show.
We're going to have an exciting show. We're going to talk about the NFL divisional round and what we expect from it. We talk about Texas's inconsistent start in Big 12 play for men's basketball. We'll finish with some talk about our women's basketball team. So we got a packed show today.
I got to go the other way. You know, Texas A&M, they got a lot of identity issues. Are they an agricultural school? Are they military? Are they blue collar? Are they academics? They're all over the place. So
now, I'm always a sucker for a one-handed catch. I have tiny hands. I need 3 of them just to catch a football. So this one-handed grab in the end zone, that's just super impressive in my eyes. That's going to be my play of the week.
Mayo pour on college game day. Look at this. Just the guy and the North Carolina, South Carolina game, he's just straight eating it, shirt off, rubbing it on his body.
Hey, listen, the Cinderella story ends here, Texans. I'm sorry, man. The chariots turns back into the pumpkin. It struck midnight. Whatever you want to say, I think it ends here.
Good morning, happy Friday, and welcome into the 1-0 Sports Show. My name is Jackson Payne, joined by my co-host Santiago Ortiz. We're both so excited to be with you guys here on this Friday. So much to talk about. NFL Conference Championship weekend, another packed weekend of college basketball, both men's and women's, and another packed week in the NBA. But before we get started here, we would like to remind you guys that today's show is brought to you by Cap Metro, which is Austin's public transit system. We connect you to work, school, play, and everywhere in between. Plan your ride to this weekend's game at capmetro.org.
That sounds great. I am going to get into my who's hot, who's not. For my who's hot this week, I have the New York Knicks. The New York Knicks, they traded for OG Anunoby, they traded away Emmanuel Quickly, and they've been looking good. They are now 10-2 since making that trade, and this team was not really considered to be a real contender at the start of the season, but they're looking pretty good, and I want to say that it's a shame that Jalen Brunson was not elected to be an NBA All-Star starter. I think that should have been done. But the Knicks are playing good defense. Tom Thibodeau, he's out there coaching them well. Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle are balling. I mean, Julius Randle, he's really upped his game a lot this offseason. He's already won Most Improved Player, but he's putting his name in the running for that again. I like the Knicks, maybe not to win the Eastern Conference, but starting to look like a good team again. They're a hot team for me. How do you got this week, Jason?
I agree with that, Santiago, and to be honest with you, a who's not candidate for me was the NBA All-Star voters for not electing Brunson to be a starter. He has been the best point guard in the Eastern Conference, honestly, in the NBA this season. So just an absolute travesty. But for my who's hot, I have to go with the big man, the Michigan man, Jim Harbaugh. Won the national championship as a head coach at the University of Michigan, his alma mater, a couple of weeks ago, and then decided to leave for the NFL, make his grand return as a head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, the terms of that contract are not public yet, but he is expected to be one of the highest paid coaches in the NFL. So this is a guy who has won at all levels as a player, has won at all levels of college football as a coach, has coached in a Super Bowl in the NFL. The last thing left on his resume is to take the Los Angeles Chargers to the top and win a Super Bowl. So we'll see if he is able to do that in Los Angeles. Obviously, he has a good foundation with Justin Herbert. But as the Harbaugh family likes to say, who's got it better than us? And recently, nobody has had it better than Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, good for Jim. Also good for Texas. Going into Michigan week 2 next year, they're going to have a very depleted roster from what they currently had this season. It's going to be a good opportunity. But moving on, for my who's hot going off coaching hires, I have a guy who's kind of becoming the new face of unemployment, and Bill Belichick. You know, kind of a surprising thing that this guy, you know, he's not looking great out there. The Atlanta Falcons recently decided to hire Rams defensive coordinator Raheem Morris. Bill was really expected to be in Atlanta if he was going to be hired anywhere. The Cowboys were maybe a contender, you know, Mike McCarthy. I'm not sure why they're bringing Mike McCarthy back. But on to the main point, Bill Belichick's not looking like he's going to be hired by anybody this season. And I think it really speaks to how the NFL has changed since when he came into the league. I don't think his coaching style has really worked. Since Tom Brady's left, he's not been able to find success with any quarterback, any coaching. So Bill Belichick, not very hot this week.
And, you know, Santiago, he's 72 years old. He's going to want control over the front office, over personnel decisions, and that's just something that an NFL team in 2024 isn't willing to give him. So I agree. Bill Belichick is anything but hot with his demands and his unsuccessful job search over the past week or so. For my who's not, I'm gonna go over to college basketball and a little spurt of things that happened over the weekend. Now, this really took the news by storm. Caitlin Clark ran into a fan, however you want to look at it. But that's not necessarily the point. My point is, I don't think that we need court storming anymore in college basketball. You can have a great upset without the fans flooding onto the court afterwards. And CBS basketball reporter Seth Davis actually put it best. He said that the players have earned the right to be on the court and the fans have not. And I agree with that. And until something changes, which it won't, I think we need to put the safety and the well-being of the players ahead of the experience of the fans. I mean, that was a bad collision away from college basketball, not just women's college basketball, but college basketball losing its biggest star for a prolonged period of time. It's just not worth it.
For sure. And, I mean, don't even get started on the fines that these schools receive. South Carolina, they beat Kentucky by a good amount. They just received a $250,000 fine for storming the court. So you got to think about it. Is it really worth it? I think it's good every once in a while, good for, you know, the aesthetic of the game, but it's also, there's a lot of harm that comes with it. But moving on to what's trending, we have conference championship weekend coming up this week. Ravens against the Chiefs and the 49ers against the Lions. Jason, who are you going to be your two teams to make the Super Bowl?
Yeah, so first off, I'm going to go with the Baltimore Ravens. I think that this is the best team remaining of the four. Lamar Jackson is likely going to win the MVP at the NFL awards ceremony, and this is the most complete team remaining in the postseason. Lamar Jackson is playing the best football of his career. This Ravens defense statistically is one of the better defenses of the 21st century. And the coaching, you know, the Ravens have two assistant coaches who are candidates for Assistant Coach of the Year, and their head coach, John Harbaugh, is a candidate for AP Head Coach of the Year. So they're well coached. They have great players on both sides, all three sides of the ball. Baltimore Ravens are my pick to win the AFC Championship. Now, in the NFC, I think the San Francisco 49ers are the better team. But I think that the Detroit Lions are a team of destiny, and I won't believe that this team is going to lose until I see them walk off the field with fewer points than their opponent. So I'm going to go with the Detroit Lions making it to the Super Bowl, thrilling Super Bowl matchup. Any of the four matchups would be good, but this is one that I'm really rooting for, and I think that there's a good chance that it happens. So give me Baltimore out of the AFC, Detroit out of the NFC. Santiago, who are your picks?
Got you. I like those picks. I think that there's not really a very wrong way to go here. These are really four teams that were looked at throughout the entire NFL season as these four teams are big contenders. I'd say the only team not remaining that was also a big contender would be the Bills or the Eagles. But these four teams are very good. I'm going to have to go with, I agree about the Ravens. They've just been dominant, and I think the difference for them is their defense. That's going to be good against the Chiefs. And out of the NFC, I'm going to have to stick with the 49ers. Unlike Jason, I don't think I can trust the Lions on the road. They have not played a road game in a little bit. I think that it's an underrated part of their advantage is Ford Field and how quiet it is when they're on offense and how loud it is on the defense. But I've seen this Lions team struggle against subpar teams, and the 49ers, they had a tough win against the Packers last week. They had to come from behind, showed some resiliency there. I think that for the Lions, it might be a case of a little bit too over-aggressive for Dan Campbell. That's how they've lost some games earlier this season, including a game to the Packers that they lost on Thanksgiving, where Jared Goff fumbled the ball once, had an interception, and also they turned the ball over on downs 3 times, going for it on 4th and 5s, 4th and 6. And we've seen it pay off for Dan Campbell, but my question is more, how long can the magic last? And I think it's going to run out for the Lions this Sunday.
I got to agree with you. No, I don't agree with you there, actually, but I agree with you in the sense that if it happens, if the Lions lose, that's how it will happen. They will succumb to their over-aggressiveness, both in play calling and on the offensive side of the ball. But, hey, we'll get back to our predictions during the pick 'em block at the end of the show. For our last part of our opening segment, we're actually going to segue back to the NBA. The big news this week was the Milwaukee Bucks, the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference, firing head coach Adrian Griffin despite their 30-13 record. And even more surprising than the actual move, Santiago, I think, was the reaction from the national media and from the basketball fans who really weren't all that surprised by this. So what's your take on this situation? Do you think that this was the right decision from the Milwaukee Bucks? And do you think the Bucks are the favorites in the East with Doc Rivers now as their head coach?
No, I don't think the Bucks are the favorites in the East, and I don't really think this was the right move. I think it was a bit of a rushed decision to fire him. It shows that the Bucks are desperate. I think since they've won that championship with Giannis, you could argue they were KD shoe size away from being eliminated from the playoffs, and that they couldn't even have won the chip that year if not for injuries to Kyrie Irving and James Harden. Besides the fact, I think that it was a little bit rushed. This guy's, Adrian Griffin, was a first ever head coach in the NBA, had 14 interviews with other teams, decided to stay with Milwaukee. And to fire him before the All-Star break and not even give him a full season, not even more than 4 months to figure it out, I think it's just not a good look. It also shows for some of the reports, we're obviously not none of the two of us are in the building, but I think that maybe the players weren't really embracing his defensive attitude, and that's what we saw on the court. Was the defense was terrible. They looked like a JV team out there playing against a varsity team, but. I don't know. I don't think that it's the right decision, mainly for me, especially if they brought out on Doc Rivers. So I want to put up, if we have in the back, Doc Rivers' little graphic about the playoffs and Doc Rivers is choking in the playoffs, if we could get that on the screen. Doc Rivers, for me, he's just a subpar coach. He's not really the best. Yeah, okay, so here we go. Last year, they're up 3-2 against the Celtics, led the Hawks 2-1, lost that Game 7, lost to the Nuggets up 3-1 in the bubble, led the Jazz up 2-1. The list just goes on and on. I think the most iconic one would have to be the 3-1 loss to the Rockets. That Josh Smith went crazy in that game. But for Doc Rivers to be the hire, I'm not really sure. It's just, you're hiring the Mike McCarthy of the NBA, just a guy who, I'm not sure if Doc Rivers is really going to be that guy to get you over the hump. I think for me, if it was my decision, I would have rather just stayed in-house, try to let them figure out. But either way, I think it's also just a bad look for the Bucks, the way they've been celebrating. It almost seems like they've been celebrating after the coach was fired. You saw them dancing pregame, and then Giannis is kind of like, he's out there saying he's not really surprised by the move, but you know that Giannis played a factor in it.
For sure.
What do you think?
I think that the decision's questionable with 30-13 being the record. Now, there was a lot of noise on Twitter, on social media about, Giannis writing plays on the bench, and the team had, Griffin had completely lost the locker room. I think those things are evident when you see the team dancing and celebrating after a coach has been fired. Now, I agree with your take on Doc Rivers being the Mike McCarthy of the NFL. I've never really thought of it like that, but it's a good way of looking at it. Now, with that being said, the Bucks are already the 2 seed. They have Giannis Antetokounmpo, Damian Lillard. This is a team that is going to get the fired coach boost as well. I actually like the Bucks out of the East, so not much more from me on that. But I really do think that the Bucks, they might have been onto something. When people look at firing coach midway through the season, despite being the 2 seed, there had to have been pretty good reason. And like you said, we're not in that locker room, we're not in that front office, we're not in those discussions. I'm going to trust their judgment here, and I'm going to say that the Bucks are the favorite in the Eastern Conference.
Out of the East, though,
yeah.
I'm gonna have to take the Celtics out of the East. Just making it clear, take the Celtics.
Yeah. So we'll get back to a little bit of NBA later during our pick and block. But for now, we're going to take a little break, and when we return, we will be joined by we will be joined by a judge who will go through our plays of the week in a little show and tell block. You won't want to miss it. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back into the 1-0 Sports Show. It is time for our Versus Block. Santiago and I are joined by Ronan Bedford, who is going to be our analyst today, our judge, so be it, when we present our plays. So I'll actually get started here first. Our first segment here is going to be Divisional Round Play of the Week. And I'll be honest, this was hard to choose from. It was a great slate of games, but not very many highlight plays. I had to go with Jahmyr Gibbs, though, of the Detroit Lions. Not as much about the play itself, but more about the moment. This was a go-ahead touchdown for the Lions. Gibbs weaves in and out of traffic, outspeeds the secondary, and dives into the end zone for the electrifying touchdown. Even though at this moment the Lions only went up 6 and then 7 after the PAT, I think we all kind of knew that the momentum had shifted to a point at which, oh God, the Lions are really about to put together 2 wins in a row and go to the NFC Championship. So for that, Jahmyr Gibbs, go-ahead touchdown, fourth quarter of the divisional playoff game is my play of the week.
All right, I had to go with the Packers and the 49ers game. I have Keyshawn Nixon's kickoff return, but not only the kickoff return, but what we will see at the end of this play. So Keyshawn Nixon takes it about 2 yards back. He goes up the right sideline, cuts all the way back to the left sideline, beats the kicker, and looks like he's gone from this angle, has a few blockers, decides to cut back in, and he fumbles the ball. It's loose on the ground, and now who's got it? We got a whole scrum, but it is found out that Eric Wilson of the Packers was able to recover this ball and jump on it. That was a huge play for the Packers, although they were not able to win the game. It was a remarkable play for him to have the awareness to be running upfield, and it led to a touchdown later that would put the Packers up. Great play from Eric Wilson. I mean, just to have all that awareness and be that present on the field, that's what special teams is about, where you earn your stripes. And I had that play for my NFL play this week.
I'm going to go with Jahmyr Gibbs on this one. It was a touchdown. He made it. He also almost fumbled the ball on he did fumble the ball on your play. That almost really cost them.
But they saved it. They saved it.
They saved it. But I think that one was the more impressive highlight.
Good pick, Ronan. So next up, we're going to pivot to the NBA, and I'll have Santiago give his play first. This is going to be the best NBA play of the week. So Santiago, who had your best play of the week in what has been a loaded week of NBA basketball?
Just hoops in general is loaded right now. So much good hoops. For me this week, I had Jokic's game winner against the Pacers. We can start off right here. Jokic, the game is tied, and he kind of dribbles inside he drives inside and then gets a weird circus ricochet up to him, up for the layup, ties the game. And then right here, just kind of walks into this three and just drills it. And then if we could see the stone cold killer Nikola Jokic, just no emotion on his face. I just hit a game winner. I'm like that, that had to be my highlight. Especially I just love how he just doesn't care. He's out there just to win, and that's standard for him. Game winners like that, nothing.
Now, Jokic might be the 2-time MVP, but I'm going to one-up you here with a big man who I think is playing a little bit better basketball, and that's going to be Joel Embiid of the Philadelphia 76ers. How about the first ever 70-15 game in NBA history? 70 points for Joel Embiid against the San Antonio Spurs this week for the Philadelphia 76ers. Guys, this was an unbelievable performance, just straight dominant. Shot over 50% from the field, shot 90% from the line, shot over 60% from three. Joel Embiid couldn't miss. He was getting anything that he wanted. For a former MVP playing at this high of a level at this point of the season, you'd have to think that this type of performance can uplift the 76ers into more of the contender that we have expected them to be this season.
Yeah, buzzer beaters are impressive, but 70-point performances are historic. Again, I'm sorry, but I got to go with Jason on this one.
I love it. I agree with that. That's a good way to put it. Buzzer beaters are impressive, but records are historic.
How many free throws did he shoot?
Well, on the topic of buzzer beaters, we're going to pivot to our best college basketball highlight of the week. I will lead off here. This was actually last night, a little Pac-12 after dark basketball. We have Jordan Pope of the Oregon State Beavers. A little step back, gives them the body and the blood, and the buzzer-beating three to knock off ranked Arizona at home. The Oregon State Beavers, who have been regarded as one of the worst Power 5 basketball programs, getting their moment of glory. Let's take another look at it. Pope, the sophomore who is averaging 18 points per game this season with a massive shot. Guys, we've already seen a couple of upsets this week with Texas knocking off Oklahoma on the road, Alabama knocking off number 6 Auburn. This was a massive shot by Jordan Pope after midnight Central Time, so gotta love it. What a shot, what a moment. Santiago, I can't wait to see your play.
Yeah, that was a pretty good one. I don't know if I can top that. They were 16.5-point underdogs, by the way. Just a little add-in. But for my moment, I had to choose. There were so many good plays, so many buzzer beaters this week, but I had Quidari Copeland of Syracuse against Miami. This is in the Carrier Dome, packed out. Gets the pass from Judah Mintz out to the corner, and he's open on the three, shoots it. Time expires, it's good. And then look at this, look at the celebration. He goes tumbling into the crowd. Look at the fans, they love it. The players love it. Everybody's happy. What a moment for Syracuse basketball, and for Quidari too. He's been there for 4 years, I think, and I love Syracuse basketball. I had to go with that one this week.
I'm going to go with the Syracuse highlight. I really like the fan involvement at the end. I know that we're against rushing the court recently.
There's no rushing the court.
There's no rushing. I'm going to go with that highlight.
You know, for what it's worth, there was no rushing the court in the Syracuse game, but they did storm the court in the Oregon State game. I did cut that out of my highlight, though, before I submitted it. So our next highlight here is going to be the best ref mistake or biggest blooper. So I'll lead off here again. I mentioned that Alabama and Auburn game earlier this week in Tuscaloosa. There was a pretty funny moment at the start of the game. So look how dim the lights were after tip-off. Janai Broome of Auburn gets a kick out for 3 and just drains the bucket. And then the game would go on to be delayed for 20 minutes because they couldn't figure out how to turn that light on. Funny, guys, afterwards, Auburn shot less than 25% from 3 the rest of the night. And so Auburn actually shot better with the lights off than with the lights on. But I think it was put best on Twitter that Auburn's Janai Broome quite literally shot the lights out of Alabama's basketball arena.
Yeah, that was not only a funny moment, but what a great game between those two teams. Always a good rivalry. Might be the best rivalry in college sports. For my blooper, I had a little bit more of a, silly NBA moment. There are a lot of them. But I have right here, if you can see in the right corner, that's KCP and Jamal Murray, and they're playing rock, paper, scissors to decide who's going to take the technical foul free throw. I feel like we see this often with teams, but just a little funny moment. And then KCP, let's see if he can knock it down. I mean, if you're going to fight for the free throw like that, you got to be able to knock it down. He makes it. Good on them. Just a little funny NBA blooper for this week.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to go with the technical issue here of not being able to turn on the lights. Honestly, from the last week, I think it happened within the last week, the biggest hoops blooper that I saw was Anthony Edwards bricking a free throw, looking at the rim twice, acting as if it was in the wrong position, and then bricking the next one. And then on his third free throw, missing the rim, so he couldn't even get it in. Like, they couldn't even get an extra shot.
That was with it.
But I'm going to go with Jason on that one.
And that goes to show you how much good basketball is happening right now. It's easy to even forget a moment like that. Great basketball. But for my we have other sports play of the week. I had NHL. I have, from last night, Thomas Harley of the Dallas Stars solos it for the win, gets the face-off right here, and it's out to Harley, and he's just going to take it all the way and make it look easy. I mean, he's making it look like a fast break in the NBA. Just, I'm just going to slap it right into the goal, just easy like that. NHL, it's exciting. The Stars are really a dominant team this year. I think they're going to have a real chance at a Stanley Cup. And, yeah, Harley, game winner, skates it off. Who did you have this week, Jason?
Santiago, that was quite the shot, but I'm a little bit more of a dominant performances guy myself. So the former first overall pick, Nathan MacKinnon, the superstar of the Colorado Avalanche, if you thought the one goal was good, let me raise you 4. So here's the first against the Washington Capitals, a little one-timer, great shot. Almost identical goal for his second goal of the game here in the second period. MacKinnon just on fire. And then the third one is my personal favorite, the breakaway goal, 2-on-2. Look at that little deke. Breaking the goalkeeper's ankles. That's for the hat trick. But MacKinnon wasn't done there. Thought 3 was fine. How about 4? Bang! Nathan MacKinnon with his 4th goal of the night. Dominant performance. This is his second 4-goal game of the season. So something that seldom happens in the NHL, seldom happens in sports with a goal, Nathan MacKinnon has done twice. So that is my play of the week.
I liked the bang, sick Mike Breen impression. But ultimately, I'm going to have to let my hometown bias influence my decision here with the winning shot from the Dallas Stars player. I'm going to go with that highlight.
So I think I'm going to take the L in this segment. I think Jason's going to take home the win. But it's a good segment. Tune in for our next segment for an interview with BYU sports reporter Jackson Payne. You don't want to miss it. We're going to talk Texas hoops. See you on the other side.
Great job, guys. Great job. guys, welcome back into the 1-0 Sports Show. Santiago and I are very lucky to be joined now by Deseret News BYU sports writer Jackson Payne. Jackson, how are you doing this morning?
What's up, boys? I'm doing great. How are you?
Great to hear from you. So we're really looking forward to this game tomorrow at the Marriott Center in Provo. First time that Texas has played in BYU since the 1970s. So let's hear first from the top. What were the expectations for BYU from you headed into their first year of Big 12 play, and how have they exceeded or went below those expectations?
You know, for me, it's safe to say they've already exceeded expectations. BYU basketball, the Big 12 basketball in general is a gauntlet, and it's unlike anything BYU's had to deal with before. You know, they were the WCC for the past decade plus. Gonzaga is one of the best teams in the country every single year, so BYU's had that familiarity with playing the best of the best, but they do it twice a year, whereas in the Big 12 it's every single night, right? So I think BYU, especially last year, they had a really young team. They went sub 500 in conference play, which is the first time they've done that in like 20 years. Just really, really disappointing season, but it was a developmental year. They had a lot of guys come off missions and trying to shake the rust off, get accustomed to the offensive scheme. And, you know, the one thing that BYU has going for it is it has this core of, like, it has an existing core that's played together for a while. You don't really see that in college basketball with the transfer portal and everything. So they have guys that have played together for a while. That familiarity's really helped them this year. I think, you know, I was expecting them to win 3 conference games this year, in all honesty. I really didn't, like, this is all the way back before the season started. Then they unveiled this, like, super radical, crazy offense where they're shooting 35 threes a game. Their defense is way better than I thought it would be. I mean, they just played such efficient team basketball that they've turned into a sleeper team for the tournament. So, you know, they're 2-4 thus far. The 4 losses are not anywhere near what you would expect. They've been in every single game. They should be 3-3, I think. I mean, one of those losses, Texas Tech, they blew a huge lead, and that was a disaster. But, you know, I think they're going to finish 7-11 in conference play. That's going to be good enough to get in the tournament. And honestly, for BYU to make the NCAA tournament their first year in the Big 12 is one of the craziest things to happen at BYU in years. So it's been really fun. I mean, it's such a fun offense to watch. You guys will see tomorrow, but BYU's well exceeding expectations. It's a blast.
Yeah. So, Jackson, they're exceeding expectations. Who for you on this BYU team has really stepped up?
You know, Jackson Robinson has been phenomenal this year. He's coming off the bench for the most part of the season. Has kind of stuck. He's landed in the starting lineup the last few games. He's a 2-time transfer. He's young for his age. He's a senior, but he's starting to show up on NBA draft boards. He's a really nice shooter. He's got this length that you don't really see at the shooting guard spot that makes him what he wants to be. I mean, he's kind of a trick-or-treat defender. You don't know what you're going to get in terms of effort, but when he's on defensively, and he's really stepped up. He's been the guy. When they need a bucket, he can go get one. He's kind of slowed down in Big 12 play, but I think, you know, it's such an adjustment going from playing, you know, the Pepperdine's and the Wyomings and these kind of teams in non-conference to going and having to play Baylor and Texas Tech and Iowa State. So I think he's going to get it right. He's a really talented player. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get drafted maybe in the mid-second round next year. So it's this summer, I mean, but he's been really impressive. It's fun to watch his game.
So, you know, Jackson, this is a BYU team that despite some of the losses in conference play, they are ranked very high in the metrics. They are ranked number 5 in the net rankings. They have one of, if not the highest rated net defense of all time, but yet they are staring the potential of losing 3 games in a row down the barrel of the gun. So what can the Cougars do against Texas tomorrow to avoid their 3rd consecutive loss in conference play?
Yeah, totally. I mean, the shooting has kind of been up and down. It's a BYU team that, you know, they don't have the length or the athleticism that a lot of these teams have. You know, being a Latter-day Saint school, they don't really have that African-American, that black funnel of talent coming in. It's a lot of local white players, and so you don't really have that athleticism. And so you kind of have to get creative. So they shoot a lot of threes. They shot 38 threes against Houston. Mark Pope has been so adamant this whole season, like, you literally cannot afford to not shoot 35 threes if you're BYU. You have to get those 35 threes up. And so they're getting good looks. They just haven't made them a lot lately. I think this is their last time this year that they're going to have 2 home games in a row. I think that not having to deal with, you know, acclimating to a new arena and traveling, I think that's going to serve them well. I think they're going to get out to a hot shooting start. I think they went 10 for 38 or 11 for 38 in threes the other day.
Wow.
And so they got to do better than that. I think they will because they won't have had to travel. I think they practice early in the day. It's a noon tip. I think they're going to be able to figure that out pretty easily. And, you know, they just got to get to that early start and kind of build. I mean, it's a team of – it's a momentum team. You know, if they hit a three, they're going to hit the next three. They're going to get on a run. They scrap, they claw. They just got to get out to a big start early. And, I mean, that served them so well in non-conference. And obviously Texas is much better than anyone they played in the non-conference schedule. But, you know, they got to get off to that early start and get those shots falling early because if they don't, I mean, it becomes so much harder when BYU can't hit those threes.
Yeah. So, Jackson, who do you think is going to be the biggest X factor for BYU this weekend to get a win over Texas?
You know, Spencer Johnson's a guy. He's the oldest player in college basketball. That's well documented. He's kind of a do-it-everything guy. He can play the 2-3. He can be a small ball forward. He has that experience. He's great back to the basket player. He's a great shooter. Last game, he got off to a really slow start. He had like 3 turnovers in the first 2 minutes. Ended up getting pulled early. It wasn't really a heavy part of their rotations. Only played 18 minutes. And that was unacceptable. I think if he plays more minutes, BYU is going to have a better chance of beating Houston on their home court because he just has that experience. He's kind of he's the tone setter for BYU on the court. And so I think he's a guy that if he's locked in, he's dialed in, everybody kind of feeds off of him. And, you know, on that other note, Ali Khalifa, he's their big man. He's a transfer from Charlotte. He comes from Egypt. I don't know if you've seen him play, but his passing ability is crazy. You got commentators calling him the Egyptian Jokic. I mean, big men do not pass the way that he does in college. And so Houston did a really good job attacking him. They kind of zeroed in on Khalifa, got him to turn it over 5 times last game. If Khalifa, you know, he kind of facilitates their offense. BYU only has one true point guard, so they run a lot of weird lineups where Khalifa's kind of facilitating to do like a nice 5-out type system. And so I think if Khalifa can keep it under 3 turnovers, I think they have a really good shot of running the offense if they want to and having that efficient scheme that can get them past a team like Texas.
You know, Jackson, I love that you mentioned Ali Khalifa because I'm a big fan of his as well. Plays such an unconventional style of basketball. But with this BYU team who is able to go 11 deep, his versatile skill set really serves the team well and feeds into their ability to shoot 35, 36, 43-pointers a game. So with that, our last question for you is, as we mentioned before, this is the first time the Texas has headed to Provo for a game against BYU since the 1970s. So give all the Texas fans watching at home a little taste of what the Marriott Center environment is like.
Dude, it's loud. I mean, it's crazy. BYU fans, it's such a fun place to play. It's big. It's got 19,000 seats. So you're looking at like a smaller NBA arena. I mean, it just gets so loud in there, and it's hard to operate if you're an opposing offense and you don't really understand if you're not used to that kind of thing. And I'm sure, you know, Big 12 arenas they're loud and they're big, but the Marriott Center just brings this certain. And you know what? This is kind of off the beaten path, but like BYU fans don't drink. They're not getting tired. It's kind of like at football games. Like it's the third, fourth quarter. BYU fans are getting more loud. They're getting more energetic. They're not kind of falling into that drunken lull. And you know, you kind of see the same with basketball. BYU fans, they have this endurance. They just keep going. Like they're getting louder as the game's going on, and it's fascinating. And another thing is, you know, the altitude here. It's a factor. Houston was getting gassed down the stretch. They're playing at sea level, coming out here having to play at mile high. I mean, it's not easy. You get winded. I'm from D.C. When I first got to BYU and I would play pickup the first time, I thought I was going to die. You know, the altitude is crazy, and I think it's one of BYU's most slept-on advantages. I think that if BYU can run you out of the gym, I mean, they can do whatever they want to in the second half if they gas you down. And so, I mean, the Marriott Center, it's like it's a circus in there. BYU's in-game production staff does a great job. The energy's always there. I'm really interested to see what a noon tip-off does. I can't remember. This is my 4th year at BYU. I can't remember a noon tip-off that I've been to at this arena. You know, the earliest I think I've ever seen is 3 or 4. So noon is going to be a new experience, but this is the main event, especially after, I mean, BYU, you guys saw, I mean, you guys went to the college football playoff. BYU went 5-7, missed a bowl game. BYU fans are really hungry for some sort of athletic success. They didn't really have that this year. The Big 12 was too tough for football. So games like this where they can play at Texas, which is like the biggest brand of the Big 12, a game where they can knock them off at home and it's the premier event in town. I mean, you're going to see a crazy amount of energy in this arena. fans, so it's going to be really fun. It's going to be really loud. They already sold out. I'm really looking forward to seeing this turnout tomorrow.
Well, Jackson, we are looking forward to it as well. We can't thank you enough for taking time out of your Friday morning to talk to us. Can't wait to see how the game plays out in the Marriott Center tomorrow. Until then, please be well. That is it for our C Block segment. When we return, we will talk a little bit more about tomorrow's game against BYU and the Texas men's basketball team in general. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this. Thanks, man. Really appreciate it.
Welcome back to the 1-0 Sports Show. We're going to get into some Texas basketball analysis. So starting off, Jason, who do you think is going to be the leading scorer for Texas this Saturday over BYU?
Well, Santiago, as I mentioned during our interview with Jackson, this is the highest rated defense by net efficiency in the country, the number 5 net ranked team. This is going to be a grinded out game. I wouldn't be surprised if Texas only has 2, maybe even 3 players in double digits. With that being said, there is a mismatch for Texas on offense in this game, and it's with the big man, Dylan Dessou. BYU is a little light up front. Ali Khalifa is a great, versatile offensive player, but his defense can struggle at times. And BYU doesn't necessarily have the size down low to be able to match Dylan Dessou's ability to score at all 3 levels. So Max Abmas can fill it up. I do think that he is going to struggle a little bit on Saturday, given the fact that BYU's point guard, Spencer Johnson, is 6'5". So that's a little bit of a mismatch for Abmas. I think that Dylan Dessou is the beneficiary of his mismatch, and so I'm going to go with Dylan Dessou as the leading scorer. Santiago, I'm interested to hear what your answer is.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Max Abmas, although I agree. I think that Noah Waterman off of the bench is going to be a difference maker for BYU. 6'11", guarding Dylan DeSue. But for Max A. Smith, we've just seen what he can do. No matter how much you doubt him, no matter how much you double team him, triple team him, he's able to get open and find ways to get to the bucket. He's got unlimited range out there too. He shoots it from the logo just casually. So I think Max A. Smith, but for me it would be a more of like it was against Oklahoma, where maybe Max A. Smith has 20 and Dylan DeSue has 17 points. I think it'll be close, but I think slightly Noah Waterman might be a little bit hard for Dylan DeSue to handle, standing whole 6'11". I mean, wow. BYU is just a very lanky team in general. So I think A. Smith has been on a tear right now. He's also chasing those scoring records. Give me A. Smith. Moving on, they're going to play Houston. Texas is going to play Houston in a few days. Which game do you think is more likely to have an upset, BYU or Houston?
Well, this is a BYU team that's very good at home, and I initially thought that this is going to be a situation where I would go with the Houston game as a bigger chance of an upset. But I think that Texas has lightning in a bottle here, and I think that they're feeling good on their road trip. This is a BYU team who's actually lost their last 2 games at home, including a game to Cincinnati last weekend, a Cincinnati team that Texas beat on the road. And so I think that Texas might be able to get their wits about them, put together their 3rd win in a row. I just don't think this team is quite there to beat a team like Houston yet. Houston is great defensively. They're great offensively. Their coaching is incredible. And they're going to be going into a Moody Center environment that, yes, Texas is great at the Moody Center. They've only ever lost 3 home games. But it's been an environment that's been lacking a little bit this year. And I don't have any problem saying that as somebody who has been at the Moody Center, who has watched every single game. This is an environment that is nothing in comparison to the environment last year. And I think that that is going to show against Houston on Monday. Maybe I'll be proven wrong. I hope I'm proven wrong. But I actually think Texas has a better chance of going on the road to beat a struggling BYU team than they do of beating one of the best teams in the country at home.
Yeah, and I agree with you about the Moody Center. I went to every single home game last year, and it was electric. It was a great college experience. And this year it's been faded. I'm not sure what's happened. On Baylor, there was plenty of students there. I think the calling would be more to the regular fan buying a ticket outside that student section. But for me, I'm going to have to stick with the U of H game. Although I'm not feeling as confident in the BYU game, I think we can really beat U of H. And I said it on the show about 3 months ago, so I'm going to stick to that. This is the game that I've been eyeing since the schedule was released for Texas. I think at home, we've seen this Texas team play down to inferior competition, but we've also seen them play up. And they have what it takes. They have players that have been there, been in the moments. But for me, it's mainly just that I think that U of H really struggles on the road. They played a close game with BYU. They've lost to TCU on the road. They've lost to Iowa State.
Sure.
So, and then the teams that beat them with 3-point shooting and by getting to the free throw line. Those are things that Texas is capable of doing. They're capable of getting the 3 against Baylor, capable of getting to the line with physicality in the paint. I'm gonna take the U of H game by just a little bit.
All right, so last question. Where do you think Texas ends up in the Big 12? Where things stand right now, they're a game and a half back of first place. There's no point in saying where they actually stand in the Big 12 because just about every team is tied between 3 different spots. And so Texas, right now, where things stand in the Big 12 conference, they have 3 losses and, I believe, 3 wins now. So they're 3-3 in Big 12 play. Have the chance to either go above or below 500 on Saturday. Santi, where do you think that Texas is going to end up when it's all said and done in about 6 weeks?
Yeah, so I have them finishing 6th. I think that Kansas, U of H, Iowa State, Baylor, and Texas Tech would be the 5 teams I would have finishing ahead of them. But I think 6 is a realistic place to put Texas at. I think that they've just shown the inconsistency, whether it's at home, on the road. We're still waiting. Although these 2 wins have been great, you still need to see a little bit more until you can feel like you can really trust this Texas team. For now, I've them at 6, but I think that the Big 12 tournament, it's always great. But I think that I feel very confident they would be able to win that if, and then again, they won it last year. They have the DNA to be able to do something like that. But
yeah, this is a Texas basketball program that just performs well in the Big 12 tournament. In 2021, they won the Big 12 tournament. In 2023, they won the Big 12 tournament. And this season, they're going to have as good of a chance as anyone with some of the veterans and the high-scoring players that they have on this roster. Now, with that being said, Santiago, I agree with you. I haven't seen enough out of this Texas team to be able to say they'll finish top 3, top 4, even top 5. I'd say right now it's not a guarantee, but looking more likely than not that Texas is going to finish in the top half of the conference, which will put them in the top 7, given that the Big 12 is a 14-team league now. And so I'm going to go with that for now. I agree with your point that this is a team that has the potential to run the table in the postseason in the Big 12 tournament. But for now, I think the best-case scenario is that they finish in the top half of the conference, We might have to check back in on that after the BYU and Houston game. That's it for us on our Texas basketball segment. When we return, we'll finish things off with our favorite block, the Pick'em segment. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back into the 1-0 Sports Show for the final time. We are joined here by Justin Gooseman, who will help Santiago and I go through our pick'ems for the games of the weekend. So leading right off, we have the AFC Championship. Kansas City Chiefs heading to M&T Bank Stadium to take on the Baltimore Ravens. Guys, the line at this one is Baltimore -3.5. We'll go from right to left. Santiago, who are you taking in this game?
Yeah, so I'm going to take the Ravens. Like I said earlier, I think that the defense is going to be the biggest difference for them compared to the Bills last week, who were not really able to stop the Chiefs. I think the defense is going to be the biggest difference. Give me Lamar Jackson. Give me the Ravens.
Yeah, and Santiago, honestly, like, the defense of the Ravens is great, but in the playoffs, I can't pick against Patrick Mahomes. He's the best quarterback in the league by far. I don't care about the weapons. They still have Travis Kelce. Rashee Rice is going to be ready to go. I got to pick Patrick Mahomes. When it comes to these big games, he always seems ready to go. I think that the Chiefs get it done in a nail-biter.
I'm going to agree with you guys. Well, I'm going to agree with Santiago here. I think that the Ravens are the better team. I think that they're the best team remaining. I like Kansas City. It's hard betting against Patrick Mahomes, but he's only won one road playoff game, and it was last week. So I'm going to go with Baltimore here. Now going to the NFC Championship. I'll give my pick here first. It's the Detroit Lions headed to San Francisco. I have already said earlier on this show, I think that the Lions, Dan Campbell's squad, are a team of destiny. So give me Detroit. I don't know how they're going to do it because they're outmanned on every side of the ball, including coaching. But I think that the Detroit Lions are going to keep winning, like I said, until I see them walk off the field with fewer points than their opponent. Goose?
I would love nothing more than for Dan Campbell to make the Super Bowl, but in this one, it's outdoors. Jared Goff is elite in domes, but he struggles outdoors. And the 49ers defense is much better than the Lions defense. I think that the 49ers can put up a lot more points than the Lions can against that stout defense. So I'm going to have to go with Brock Purdy and the 49ers to get into this Super Bowl.
Yeah, I agree with you, Goose. I brought up earlier that Ford Field is a bigger part of their advantage than people kind of are noticing. But I'm going to have to ride with the 49ers here. Shout out to my boy, Rylan. Didn't forget you this time. But, yeah, 49ers at home. I don't think it's going to be good for the Lions, especially with Deebo Samuel maybe coming back. We'll see. But got the 49ers winning this one.
So we have the Phoenix Suns and the Indiana Pacers tonight in the NBA. Big matchup between two of the better teams in the league. Santiago, who do you have in this game? Intriguing showdown in Indianapolis.
Yeah, I have the Suns winning this game, especially I'm not sure if Tyrese Halliburton is going to play. I think he might be out. But their big three's rolling. They've been able to play consecutive games with Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and Kevin Durant in the lineup. Coming off a 30-point win against the Mavericks, I'm going to have to rock with the Suns.
Yeah, I think I'm also going to stick with the Suns. They've won, I believe 7 in a row as of late. They've really been rolling on offense. That big three, like you said, is starting to put it together. And Indiana's great, but that defense is just simply not good enough. So I'm going to have to go with Phoenix in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to hit you guys with a little not so fast. I'm going to go with the Indiana Pacers, assuming that Tyrese Halliburton plays. I think that there are very few basketball players in the world playing at a higher level than he is. So I'm going to go with the Pacers over the Suns in this one. Sticking in the association, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers. We're headed to Milwaukee to take on the Bucks. No word on if Doc Rivers will be the head coach for this game, but we know that he'll be the head coach soon. For that reason, I'm going to go with the Bucks. There is a little theory that teams do better after they fire a coach, and that's true. The Bucks haven't lost since they fired Adrian Griffin, and I think that that's going to continue. Giannis Antetokounmpo, he's motivated. He's always been one of the best players in the league. Damian Lillard is finally hitting his stride and playing in an offense that's comfortable for him. So I'm going to go with the Bucks over the Cavs in this one.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do the same. Like you said, teams seem to get better whenever they fire their head coaches. There's a video going around social media of the Bucks dancing pregame before their last game. Vibes seem to be really high in that locker room. So I'm going to go with the Bucks to keep it rolling. I think the Cavs are a really good matchup, or I think that they can match up well against the Bucks. But in this one, I think it just comes down to vibes, and I got to go with Milwaukee.
Yeah, I'm going to have to complete the clean sweep. These teams played 2 days ago. The Bucks won by 20 without their coach. No Evan Mobley, no Darius Garland for the Cavs. I like the Bucks.
Okay, so our next matchup tonight in the our next matchup tonight in the NBA is the Oklahoma City Thunder headed to the Big Easy to take on the New Orleans Pelicans. Santiago, why don't you start us off here? Who do you have in this Western Conference showdown?
So the Pelicans, I feel like they're a little bit of a slept-on team. They play very well at home, but I'm going to have to take the Thunder here. They're rolling. SGA just got the All-Star nod. Might play a little bit up for that. But Thunder, I think they're rolling. Just give me them to beat the Pelicans.
These Thunder-Pelicans matchups, they're always really close. I know there's that Shea Gill buzzer beater Shea Gill go-ahead shot a couple years ago, and then the Devontae Graham full-court buzzer beater. It seems like whenever the Pelicans and Thunder match up, it's always down to the wire, but I'm going to have to go with the Pelicans. Like you said, they're really good at home, and I like the way that they've been playing recently. I think they match up well against the Thunder. Zion can really bully Chet down low and kind of be physical with him, so I'm going to have to go with the Pelicans.
And I'm going to go with Oklahoma City here. I think that Chet Holmgren is one of the better players overall in the NBA this year. The rookie season that he has put together has been a joy to watch, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was named an all-star starter yesterday. I do think that that will boost him up a little bit. I'm just not a huge fan of this New Orleans squad this year, so give me the Thunder in the Big Easy. Now it's time for our NBA Game of the Week. Tomorrow, appointment television in Detroit when the Washington Wizards go to face off against the Pistons. Guys, I'm going to take the Wizards in this one. They fired Wes Unseld Jr. the other day. Brian Keefe is the interim coach. He will be making his debut tomorrow. Fired coach boost for the Wizards. I think that that's like really the only way that you can read who's going to possibly win this game. So I'm going to go with Washington. I'll be interested to see what you two have to say about this game.
Yeah, this game is like really, I mean, I don't even know what to say about this game. NBA Game of the Week between the two worst teams in basketball. Must-see TV if you hate watching basketball. Jordan Poole, you're likely to see a few really bad turnovers. The Pistons, you're not even going to get to watch Cade Cunningham because he's still hurt. So like I said, must-see TV. I still don't know who I'm going to go with. This is really a last-second decision. I guess I'll take the Pistons. I don't know. Yeah, sure, we'll go with Detroit.
All right, well, for me, these teams have played a combined 88 games, and they have a combined 12 wins. So not good seasons for either of them. Detroit might be one of the worst teams in American history, but I've got them winning this game. They're going to win 2 games in a row. They just beat the Hornets on Thursday night. I got them and Bogdan Bogdanovic, who's averaging 20 points a game. In the absence of Cade Cunningham, he's just shooting threes out of the building. Give me the Pistons to win 2 in a row.
If the Pistons win 2 games in a row and the Lions go on to beat San Francisco to go to the Super Bowl, tell Detroit to get ready. We have no clue what is going to happen in that city.
You never
just hope everyone stays safe. I think that's all it needs.
Maybe they're sacrificing 2 Pistons wins in a row for a Detroit loss.
So we have the Los Angeles Clippers headed to Boston to take on the Celtics. This is the last NBA game that we are going to preview. Santiago, who do you have in the Battle of the Seas?
Yeah, I got the Clippers. This is a battle between the 2 teams that have by far looked like the biggest contenders to make the NBA championship so far. The Clippers have won, I think, 20 out of their last 27 games. I mean, they are just balling. They've figured out the lineup. They have the chemistry. Harden, Kawhi, PG, Russ coming off the bench. I like the Clippers in this one.
Yeah, this is a matchup of the 2 really like 2 of the 3 super teams in the NBA. The Clippers, you got Russ, Harden, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and then the Celtics, you got Porzingis, Tatum, Brown, Derek White. I mean, Drew Holiday even. If Porzingis plays, I think the Celtics win this game, but he turned his ankle yesterday against Milwaukee, and if he doesn't play, I'm going to have to go with the Clippers. And so for that reason, I don't think he's going to end up starting in that game. I'm going to have to go with LA.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Boston Celtics in this game. I'm a big fan of the way that this team is structured this year. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are back at it as one of the best duos in the NBA, but Derek White is playing at an all-star level, enough so to where if Kristaps Porzingis, their third scoring option, is out, I think the Celtics will still be able to put up enough to compete with the Clippers. 3 college basketball games on deck for us to preview before we get out of here for the morning. First up, Kansas heads to Hilton Coliseum to take on the Iowa State Cyclones. Guys, this was my easiest game to pick this weekend. I'm going to go with Iowa State. I think that this is a Kansas team that is struggling. I don't think that they're a national championship contender. Iowa State has not lost at home yet this season, and I don't see it happening tomorrow. Give me Taman Lipsey and the Cyclones over the Jayhawks.
Yeah, simply because Jason said this is going to be his easiest game of the week, I think I have to go away from that and just pick Kansas for fun. Yeah, Kansas has been struggling a lot lately. I also don't believe that they're really a national championship contender, but they're kind of playing for their lives in the Big 12 Conference after losing a few games recently. So I'm going to have to go with Kansas. I think Bill Self is going to have them ready to go for this one. It's going to be a really tough environment, but I'll go with the Jayhawks.
Yeah, this is the weakest Kansas team I think we've seen in about the entirety of Bill Self's coaching career. This might be the weakest team that he's had on paper. I also agree with Jason. I like Iowa State at home. Iowa State at home, they are 11-0 this year. Give me Milan Momcilovic for the win.
Milan, yeah, there you go. There you go. Milan Momcilovic, the 5-star forward of the Iowa State Cyclones, who's been putting together a great freshman year. Guys, another game in the Big 12. Texas Tech Red Raiders, who right now are in first place in the conference, head to Norman to take on the Sooners, who fell to the Longhorns on Tuesday. Guys, I think that Oklahoma is going to bounce back in this game. I do think that they are a little bit fraudulent compared to where they are rated in the AP poll, but Otega Owe is one of the most underrated players in the country, and their 3-headed monster at guard of Owe, Javion McCollum, and Milos Uzan are going to net these guys some wins, and I think that tomorrow is a perfect example of that against a Texas Tech team that's been good to start out conference play, but I just think that Oklahoma needs this one a little more, and they're going to get it.
Yeah. In Norman, I think that Porter Moser's squad is going to rebound. I also believe that they're ranked a little bit too highly right now. I think they should be around that 22-23 mark in the AP poll. But I think Porter Moser is going to have them ready to go. I think they're going to rebound at home against the Texas Tech squad. So give me Oklahoma.
Yeah, I'm going to hit y'all with the not-so-fast this time. I like Texas Tech. I think they're a sleeper team in the Big 12. They've just come out really strong this season, obviously sitting at first place in the Big 12. I like them to win against Oklahoma this weekend.
All right, guys, final game and the biggest game for us. It is Texas headed to Hilton Coliseum to take on the BYU Cougars tomorrow at 1 p.m. We'll start out with Santiago. Who do you have in this game?
Yeah, I have Texas. You know, this isn't a really analytical pick. I just think that Texas is going to be able to go onto the road and get this win. They have not really played their best in tough road environments, but I think for where this team is at right now for Rodney Terry, I think he understands that this is a big pivotal turning point in his career. I think that the players understand that too, and they're going to be playing for them. I like Texas to win this game.
Yeah, yesterday I was at Pluckers for Longhorn Weekly, and Rodney Terry had this calmness about him. I feel like he's kind of figured out what he likes about this squad and where this squad can really be headed. And although they had a couple really tough losses at the beginning of the season, I think that Texas is ready to go. It's going to be a really tough environment, but BYU's system is extremely volatile. If Texas plays good defense and contests shooters, there's a chance that BYU just goes completely cold from the three-point line. So if Texas plays that defense, I think Texas is slated to win that game, and that's why I'm going to have to go with the Longhorns. I think they're ready to go defensively, and I think Rodney Terry is poised to really turn this team around.
Well, guys, as great as it would be if Texas were to be able to make it their third win in a row tomorrow, I just don't think it's going to happen. This is a BYU team. The metrics don't lie. They shoot the ball from three incredibly well. They play some of the best defense that I have ever seen, and those are things that this Texas basketball team struggles with. They struggle to defend the perimeter. They struggle to defend in transition. They struggle to defend in general, and I don't think that this is a type of Texas team that can go into a shootout on the road and come out on top with an opponent. And so for that reason, I'm going to have to go with BYU. That's all for us this morning. Thank you for joining us. I want to give a quick shout out to our executive producer, TJ Krylowitz, in the back room. Always does a wonderful job on Friday mornings. But please make sure that you tune in next week at 10 a.m. We'll be back here for another edition of the 1-0 Sports Show. Also be sure to check out our sister shows, College Press Box, executive produced by myself on Monday, and College Crossfire, executive produced by this guy on Wednesday nights. That's it for us. Have a good day and an even better weekend.